And in addition to this, through the week we saw another story by Matt Cunningham that the Northern Territory Government and the judiciary reportedly at loggerheads over a plan to hold court hearings on prison grounds. Senior government and legal sources confirming to Sky News that the government's been working on a proposal for the local court to sit on the prison property as it seeks to reduce a massive backlog in cases that's clogging courts and prisons. I mean, Matt, this was a story again that got people talking. They were sort of going, all right, well, if it is able to save some money, if we're able to do it in an open and transparent way so that we can indeed make sure that we know what's going on within the courts, then maybe it's something we need to look at.
Yeah, and there's been some pushback from the judges, is my understanding. I was actually told that it was put directly to the Chief Judge, Elizabeth Morris, and she had basically gone back and said, we don't think this is a good idea. I put that question directly to the courts and didn't get a straight answer about that. But what they did say in the statement they sent me was that they had concerns about the open court system and the fact that courts needed to be open to the public and accessible. My understanding is that the plan is to have it on. If you go out to Holt's Prison, for example, the prison grounds are much bigger than the prison itself. You have to actually drive through the entry to the prison, and then there's the cottages and all other buildings that sit outside of the main prison wall, and then you get to the main prison wall. So my understanding is that the plan would be to hold those court hearings in some of those buildings that sit outside the main prison wall, but are still on the prison grounds. And I don't know whether Bill has knowledge of this idea, but that is what my understanding would be. So the judges wouldn't have to go inside the prison wall, and therefore, theoretically, I believe the public could still be able to access those court hearings, because at the moment you can drive straight through those gates and into the car park that sits on the prison grounds but is not inside the prison itself.
Look, and there's something. Look, I've been on this for years and years and years in my old job, and I've been to prisons all over Australia and all over the world. And I think the big one, Silverwater in New South Wales, has got a court inside the prison.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. It sits inside the prison. And what it comes down to is efficiency. So every time you move an offender out of a secure facility, there is risk. And 90% of your escapes happen outside of custody. So court escorts, hospital escorts.
We've seen them so many times, haven't we?
Funeral escorts.
Remember the one in the Supreme Court? Remember the one with the...
Oh, yeah.
So in those larger prisons elsewhere, the courts are inside the prison. So the offender comes and sits in court. There's a place inside the prison that's designated as a court. We've done this during COVID. All right, COVID, we couldn't move around. So we run courts inside the prisons via video link up. We run courts out to the bush via video link up. It can be done. The judiciary needed to be reminded it's a 21st century and there's technology available and we can do things differently.
A lot of this stuff's done via AVL now, though, already, isn't it?
There's some stuff done by AVL. There needs to be a little bit of change somewhere for the admission of evidence that I'm aware of, and the courts are still pushing back on that first hearing or that first time in court having to be there in person. But there's ways that we can do this stuff now to make it more efficient and to save a few bucks.
Would it be in Silverwater? I presume in Silverwater, if it's inside the actual prison, that's not accessible to the public?
No, it's not accessible to the public.
So,
the offender comes in as a room inside the prison that is designated as an actual court. It's not prison. The offender sits there and they attend court virtually. So it's like they're in the courtroom.
Is the plan here to do it inside the prison wall or outside the prison wall?
I'm not exactly sure what minister's talking about there, but there are certainly ways to be able to do this to make it more efficient, easier for corrections at the end of the day.
Well, that's the other issue as well, because we had a $21 million overtime bill last year for corrections, and a lot of that, my understanding, is a huge part of that
is court escorts and remote court escorts. So there's ways to do things smarter, and when I was in the job, we were pushing the judiciary to make some changes to make things easier for us, and even particularly around scheduling, to bring certain offenders in before lunch and certain offenders after lunch, so we could actually keep our officers back in the prison and be smart about the way that we did business. But the courts are very, very reluctant and resistant to any form of change whatsoever. I think there's a will now to make some change within the judicial system, which is good. Yep. I'm just hoping that it progresses.
The public response
quickly
to that idea seems to be fairly positive from what I've seen over the past couple of days.
What do you make of it, Dheran?
Look, I haven't seen the plan at all to the courts being on prison grounds. So it's obviously it's a bit hard to support when we
Yeah.
don't know the full implications of the plan. But I think, again, it needs to go through a series of consultation because, there could be unintended consequences to this. And the first thing that comes to mind is, I think it is important that people have that face-to-face with the judicial system, especially in the territory where we have people that language is, third, fourth language, and that makes it even harder. I've done Skype videos out to communities. It makes it very hard. So that I think we need to look at that and ensure that, especially when we've got people on remand, we've got people that are on bail, to ensure that we're not sentencing innocent people and that they do get a fair trial at the end of the day. So that comes to mind straight away. But to make further comment, we need to see the full plan outlined.